Well, I've always been into music. I first sat down and played the piano when I was 2.5, so I'm told. Well, I grew up in a household where there was always music playing and lots of different types of music. I loved film music. I loved that, what they call the golden age of film music. Well, I've worked a lot in television and film. Theatre's always been my first love. I think the reason that I really love theatre, maybe more than television and film, is that it's very much a collaborative process. It's very much a team effort. And I've been very lucky to work for some of the major theatre companies. Love's Labour's Lost and Love's Labour's Won are probably shows 21 and 22 that I've written for the Royal Shakespeare Company. So I've done a lot for them. I think I prefer theatre more than anything else. You're almost always right at the beginning of the process. In fact, much earlier than the actors. You start talking about the projects months before you even go into rehearsal, which would start with me, in this case, talking with Chris Luscombe, the director, talking about where the music's going to go, where the music's going to fit, how much music we're going to have, what we want the music to do. And then once those ideas are formulated, this is where they all come back to. I still use the piano very much as my main instrument and the main composing instrument, so although I use, like all other composers nowadays, the computer is a very, very important part of what I do. I still sit at a real piano with a pencil and paper and sketch ideas at the piano before taking them to the computer. But just working simply on the feel of the music and the tunes very important, and lots of different sketches. I then go through them with Chris. We decide which versions we might use. At that point, we take them into the rehearsal room and we work with the actors, we work with the company. When you're in rehearsal, you, in collaboration with the director, will discover moments where you thought, well, we're not going to have any music there, we don't need music there. And as you watch it in the rehearsal room, you say, actually, it would be great just to have a little bit of underscore here, just to enhance the dramatic mood. We then have the technical period, which is the period when we actually move into the theatre before the audience come and see the shows, and we're normally in there for 3-4 days, just slowly working through all the technical side of the show. That's when the music can change the most. And I can write 30 seconds of music and I instantly then have to multiply it by 3 because the truck's taking longer to move out. So you have to think on your feet. And then we get the show on, and that's what the audience hear. Well, the great thing about working with a company like the Royal Shakespeare Company is, of course, you have a very large support group around you as the composer. And we have the luxury at the RSC of having live musicians. We have 8 musicians on each show. We based our lineup for the shows on sort of early 20th century dance band come theatre pit band. And because I wanted to get as many colours as possible, we have 3 string players, we have some brass players, we have a percussion player, and of course our wonderful musical director John Wolfe on the piano, who will be with you all the way through rehearsals, and once the shows have opened, he then looks after the day-to-day running of the shows. So the exciting thing about these 2 productions is that they're set either side of the First World War. And from a musical point of view, in Love's Labour's Lost, leading up to the First World War, you've got Gilbert and Sullivan, you've got very Elgarian influences, and you've got early Ivor Novello. We've used very much Novello influence in those songs for that production. And then for Love's Labour's Won, we move into early Noel Coward. We saw the character of Balthazar as very much a sort of Noel Coward type house guest that would have been at those parties at that time, and at the drop of a hat would sit down at the piano and sing his latest song that he'd written. So that was a lovely springboard for the character of Balthazar, which I think has ended up working really, really well, and has allowed me to write some songs that reflect that sort of Noel Coward type feel.
Nephew, the revellers are entering.
The music almost should feel like it's always been there. And you couldn't possibly have done anything else. That's just how the music has to be. But at the end of the day, it's the audience that are the most important. And if somebody walks out of one of these shows humming one of those tunes, that's my job done. As far as I'm concerned, that makes me very, very happy.